Hey guys,
This is Tanzila.
and this is Adnan. And in today's video, we're here to talk about the key questions you need to keep in mind when you're scouting your next big role and next big opportunity. So over the course of the last few years, between Tanz's experience as a full-time recruiter and my experience screening, hiring, onboarding, and managing teams, we've met, interacted, and screened a lot of candidates who bring a lot to the table. And with that wealth of experience and in-market know-how, we know exactly what employers look for, as well as what candidates need to be aware of as they take their next big step.
And beyond that, as we have trained people and vetted people on how to do well in interviews, but we've also been on the other side, and we've been the candidates and we've applied to several employers, and we've also figured out just from personal experience what to look for and what the right questions to ask when we are on the other side of the table and evaluating if we want to join that company that we've applied for. We're going to share that wealth of experience with you as well.
So the first thing you need to keep in mind is research, research, research. Research should form the foundation of how you kickstart your job search process. It gives you a head start before an actual conversation with that potential employer, and it gives you a sense of who they are and where they're coming from. So as a former journalist and a current communications professional, I'm naturally primed to look up a company on the internet and on social media. You want to be aware of media articles and news coverage pertaining to that company in specific. This gives you a sense of their sentiment towards that company, and it kind of sounds you out on who they are and what they've been involved in. So a few things you want to be cognizant of are scandals that the company is embroiled in, problematic statements that the CEO has made, the company's position on diversity and inclusion, the company's financial statements, because that gives you a sense of future growth, current prospects, as well as product innovation, depending on which sector the company is engaged in, as well as if the company is currently engaged in a prolonged phase of layoffs. That's obviously very troubling, and that might be something you want to stay away from if it's something that you come across. And of course, that's where social media ties into all this as well. You want to evaluate the company's social media channels, whether it's LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook. You want to get a sense of their messaging and whether their messaging and content resonates with who you are as a human being and whether it overlaps with you, your purpose, and your mission.
So while it helps to get to know a company on a macro level, it helps to get first-hand accounts and get really specific about the details of working at the company. So how do you do that? It's to utilize the network you've already built through university, through your first previous jobs you've held. Reach out to your friends and family, and if you don't find anyone in that network, the next best place to look is through your LinkedIn network. So whenever a job is posted, LinkedIn makes it really easy for you to find people in your network that can refer you. When you go on LinkedIn, just put the name of the company you're working at and it'll list all the jobs that the company has. It'll show right below that the number of connections that you have with that company. So if you click on that, you'll notice it'll say either 1 connection works there or 3 connections, etc. You can use those individuals as a starting point to reach out to. So let's say you have a great problem of having more than 1 connection who works at the company. The best way to narrow that search down is to see who you know the best from that list, because they're the ones who are likely to be the most honest with you, and they're likely to be the ones who are most responsive as well. Another thing to consider is the specific department and the location of where these connections work. For example, let's say you're applying for an engineering role and you're located in Toronto, but this is a global company and that person is in the sales department in Berlin. That may not be your first option and who you want to reach out to, because global companies obviously have different cultures in those specific regions. So that's just something to keep in mind as well when you're deciding who you want to reach out to. Let's say that doesn't pan out either and you find 0 first connections on LinkedIn. What you want to do next is something else that LinkedIn does really well is the concept of second connections. What you'll do here is you'll go in the search bar and type in the name of the company again, and in the sidebar to the left hand side, instead of clicking jobs, you'll click people, and then you'll filter and you'll check the box that says second connections. So then it'll list out all the people who are connected to you on a second variation, and right underneath their names you'll see you have X number of shared connections. So you'll click on that and it'll show you a list of people who you're both mutually connected with, And you can reach out to those individuals as well as a starting point. So after that, after you've figured out who you want to reach out to, what you'll do next is just send them a LinkedIn message, just a quick 5-minute message reaching out to them and letting them know that you applied for X position at the company and you're just really interested in learning a little bit more about their experiences. And if you could just call them for a quick 10-minute conversation. What do you want to ask in this quick phone call? You want to ask them what their experience was like working at the company. You want to ask them how they would describe the working culture. What is their current supervisor's leadership style? If some red flags to look out for if they say, micromanagement, etc. You just want to ensure what they're saying aligns with what you have in your mind about the perfect employer and the perfect management style, what suits your culture. Another point is that when people are talking and if they're a current employee, they are always going to sugarcoat the truth to an extent because they are working there. So take what they say with a grain of salt. The next point is doing a little bit of detective work before you move further with the company. So being a recruiter, I'm definitely accustomed to looking at people's employment histories and looking at how long they've stayed at a company and if there's internal growth within their tenure at a specific company. I think that candidates should also do the same when they're looking at the employer side as well. So how do you go about this? So you want to type in the name of the company you're looking to apply to and look at all the people that have worked there and click on some of the profiles. And what you want to look out for is how long have they been working at the company? Have they just worked there for 6 months? Or have they been working there for 5 to 10 years and you see that they've increasingly taken on more responsibilities and more senior level roles? Have they had growth in that company? And again, you're looking for general trends. If you see a lot of people have 6-month tenures at the company, that may mean that there's high turnover at the company and there could be something lurking behind that. And if you see lots of people have illustrious careers of, spanning 5, 10, 25 years at the company and with different roles, you can kind of deduce that the company is a company that values its employees and is invested in their career development and growth. So that's just something, if you have some time, that you can do. And as a recruiter, we do all this on candidates, and I think we as candidates should also do this to the employers that we choose to spend our careers with.
So one big thing that I've noticed people often overlook is Glassdoor. So what is Glassdoor? Well, Glassdoor is essentially an employer review site, if you will. It's basically this repository that aggregates employee feedback, company ratings, and CEO ratings. As you scroll down the page of the company in question, you'll see that there is detailed employee feedback followed by a breakdown of pros and cons and then a unified rating that said employee or ex-employee, depending on who you're looking at, assigns to the company in question. Make sure that you scour the entire page dealing with that company. Don't just dwell on the first 2, 3, or 4 reviews. Make sure you analyze that page in depth so you get a clearer picture of what the company is and who you're dealing with. Now, there are those naysayers who obviously say that, well, Glassdoor has become this, free-for-all community board for disgruntled employees to sound off on ex-employers and leaders that they've had issues with. Now, let's be honest, there will always be a few people here and there and a few employees here and there who feel disaffected. There is no company or entity on the planet that has a pristine reputation. So take it with a grain of salt. However, there is a way to actually do a deep dive and find out what's legit and what isn't. So for example, let's say you have a company that has roughly 100 reviews and 2-3 employees kind of paint a less than flattering picture of the employer in question. And overall the company has a rating of 4, 4.5, 4.6, whatever the case might be. I think it's fair to say that that company is a safe bet and you can probably move on to the next phase of your job search with them. However, on the flip side, there's another scenario. Let's say you have a company that has 100 reviews and the CEO has an overall rating of 2.5, 2.75, even 3. Now that's aggregating the collective feedback and the collective ratings of 100 employees or ex-employees. Now that paints a troubling picture like, at that point you might want to pump the brakes, take a step back, decide what's best for you, and probably move on to the next best prospect. Culture is often set at the top and a fish rots from the head. So if you decide that you want to go ahead, but there is this kind of conflicting feedback that you're getting from these employees and ex-employees, somewhere down the road, you will face some issues and some roadblocks that might force you to leave that position for good and not leave with the best perception of that company. Another good place to get a sense of a company and its collective perception by its employees and even society as a whole who are dealing with that company is Google reviews. This also works on a rating system, and it also kind of aggregates collective feedback on the company that you're targeting. So an all too common scenario that I've often come across over the last few years is, when I'm catching up with a friend or a family member or an ex-colleague, and I know that they're in an active job search mode and they've just come off fresh from an interview, and I ask them about how it goes, and they usually say something like, I think it went well, I think they got a good impression from me, and so on. But when I kind of prod a bit more and I go into slightly more granular detail, questions like, what's a development program like? Do they offer flexible working options, and so on? The response is usually a mixture of fumbling and crickets. And this is one big mistake that job candidates commit. They don't use that interview as an opportunity to have an actual, constructive dialogue with the interviewer. Bear in mind that an interview is a chance for you to vet an employer as much as it is a chance for them to get to know you in detail as a person and as someone who could potentially fit in with the culture of the company. So some important questions to consider during the interview are, so what gaps are you looking to plug with someone with my specific set of skills? What made you reach out to me in the first place? What is it in my resume that jumped out at you? What are the company's growth plans for the year ahead? What is your policy on flexible working hours? And do you have some kind of official work from home policy in place right now?
And I just want to point out as well that it's important to ask questions. It'll actually have the opposite effect if you're too timid, because as an employer and as a recruiter who evaluates a candidate, I get concerned when they have no questions because it displays a lack of interest and a lack of initiatives.
Yeah.
So ask those questions. They will not think badly about you if you ask a lot of questions. Of course, one thing you want to stay away from is asking too many questions right off the bat about benefits, the salary, and vacation time, because it may have a negative impact on you and may backfire. So I just wanted to bring up a few other questions you can ask as well. So one of them is, what does success in this role look like? And you can even ask within the first 3 months and within a year. It is basically a longer job description of your responsibilities within the role, and it'll also show you if the employer has a plan for you in the role and whoever takes that role of what success will look like and how you'll grow and the duties and responsibilities you'll have within the role. And it'll show you if the work and the expectations are things that will interest you in the long run as well. So the next question is, how do you promote teamwork and maintain a motivated environment? This is a great question to ask to see what actions they take to promote team morale. Do they lead with empathy? Do they take the actions that resonate with you and your style of having a direct supervisor relationship? Your supervisor is the individual that will have a great impact in your career and will be the champion when promotions, etc. come up. So you want to make sure that you have a good, healthy relationship and synergy with your direct line manager. Another great question you can ask in that same vein to your interviewer is, have you ever mentored an employee to achieve their career goals? Or if you don't want to be as specific, you can ask, what professional development opportunities are there in the company? So a lot of managers are great leaders who are invested in promoting their direct reports and helping people achieve their career goals, while unfortunately some are just there for a paycheck. So this will be very illuminating for you to ask that question and see if they have a specific example. And the way people answer questions kind of shows their passion. And if you see their eyes light up and get happy when they're explaining that, you see they're passionate about helping those and giving back to people under his leadership as well.
So as you analyze the job market in detail and vet a potential employer, exercise vigilance, be alert, be aware of what's going on in the media, on social media, with your network, with company insiders, and so on. Remember, when you're exploring the possibility of joining an organization full-time, and if and when they want you on board full-time, you are joining a group of individuals with whom you'll be working for at least 8 to 10 hours per day. They'll essentially become your second family. So it's important that they contribute to your wellness and your well-being. Mental health is obviously important, especially at a time like right now. Just be aware of the fact that as employers, are on the hunt for the best candidates out there in the market, you absolutely have the right to vet them in equal measure and in as much detail, if not more. After all, at the end of the day, it's your well-being, it's your livelihood, and it's your career on the line. So we really hope you enjoyed the video, and we'd be extremely interested in knowing what you think, whether this helped you in any way. Are there any other questions that you tend to ask employers? Any other thoughts that you suggest people keep in mind as they explore the possibility of a new job or a new role? And as always, please like and share this video, subscribe to our channel, and we'll both speak to you very soon.
Bye.